At that moment, he received a phone call, who told him to go to a specified location immediately. Guda just left Ellie on the roadside and left. Ellie took a taxi to find evidence of her husband's infidelity and quickly followed. She saw her husband go to a newly built building. Ellie had to wait downstairs. Guda went to the top floor. Brother Eula threw him a stack of photos. It was a wedding photo of him and Ellie. The brother angrily accused Guda of having been married for several years. Guda didn't know how to explain for a moment. Eula angrily called him a shameless guy and asked if he had any intention of contacting his sister. He wanted to swallow the whole company, and Guda really wanted to give a reasonable explanation, but the angry brother simply did not give him any chance. Eula said he would make him unable to survive in the legal profession, and then punched Guda in the face, calling him a womanizer and a loser. Guda, who had never been called like this before, went crazy. He grabbed Eula and wanted to argue with him. Facing Eula's insults, Guda swung a punch. Eula hit the railing behind him hard. The angry Guda even pulled him up and told him to say it again if he had the guts. The two kept tugging at each other. Eula missed a jump and flew directly out. The next day, the mother-in-law was dissatisfied with the breakfast made by Ellie. She poured the breakfast directly on Ellie's head. Ellie cried and asked her why she had to treat her like this. The mother-in-law bluntly said that she had never treated her like a family member, and said that she was going to kick Ellie out of the house. The mother-in-law pulled her daughter-in-law and scolded her, not noticing Ellie's mother, who had just arrived at the house. Ellie's mother rushed over. The evil mother-in-law told her to hurry up and take her daughter and get out. Ellie's mother could no longer bear it. She said she would not let her daughter stay here for another second. The mother took Ellie and left. She asked her daughter if she was often scolded and humiliated like this in her in-laws' house, and even beaten. Ellie, who didn't want to worry her mother, of course couldn't admit it. Her mother asked her why her son-in-law wasn't there during the incident. From her daughter's stammering, her mother sensed that her son-in-law must have stayed out all night. Guda was so scared that he didn't dare go home all night. Eula's family had been waiting for her eldest brother to come home, until the phone rang in the middle of the night. The family then learned that something had happened to him. They hurried to the hospital. Seeing the person in the hospital bed, covered in wounds, the family couldn't believe what they were seeing. The doctor said it was a miracle that he was still breathing. The old father almost fainted when he heard this. After a long operation, the doctor said that the injuries were too severe, and that they had done their best. The chances of survival were very low. The family found it hard to accept. At this time, the police came to take a statement and said that he had fallen directly from the top floor. His younger brother felt that his brother could never go to the top floor alone. The police said that it was a new building and the surveillance cameras had not yet been installed. It would take some time to investigate. Guda, who had done something he was ashamed of, kept reliving the scenes from last night in his mind. This made him panic. At that moment, the phone rang. Eula cried and told him that his brother had an accident. Guda hurriedly asked how he was doing. Eula said that the injury was too serious and he was probably dead. Hearing this, Guda let out a sigh of relief. Ellie came to the company and asked her husband why he didn't come home last night. Guda had no time to explain at this moment. Ellie asked him if he had gone to see that woman, seeing that her husband was about to turn around and leave. Ellie said that she had followed him last night, saw you go into the building and come out a long time later. Hearing this, Guda was almost scared to death. He hurriedly asked Ellie where she had followed him last night, and asked if he had gone upstairs with her, but Ellie ignored him. Guda kept reassuring himself that his wife must not have seen him. Still feeling guilty, he decided to go to the hospital to take a look. He had to see for himself to feel at ease. Seeing his big brother on the hospital bed, covered in bruises, Guda was so scared that he quickly backed away. This scene happened to be witnessed by Eula, who had just come in. Ellie's mother called her son-in-law and asked him what he really thought. She said that it was not the first time her daughter had been beaten by her mother. Guda said that he needed to go home and check with his mother. His mother-in-law questioned him as to what he meant by that. Guda said that his mother had been in a bad mood recently because of things at work. He himself had also had a lot of worries recently. He hoped that everyone could just let bygones be bygones. His mother-in-law could hardly believe it. For so many years, her daughter had worked hard in your family, and now your mother has thrown water at her, scolded her, and kicked her out with bare feet. Ellie's mother asked him to explain why he didn't come home last night. Guda, who was feeling guilty, immediately lost his temper. He said he didn't need to report to you one by one. You can think whatever you want. Hearing this, Ellie's mother was shocked. Guda said, "You have never helped me at all. I was even called by you poor people to kneel on the ground." Ellie, who was outside the door, couldn't bear to hear anymore. She told him to say it to her face. Ellie held back her husband, who was about to leave, and told him that he had to apologize to her mother. But Guda pushed Ellie to the ground and left without looking back. Ellie swore that she would make this heartless man regret it. She called Eula and arranged to meet. Just as Eula was about to rush over, he received a call from the hospital. Her brother had finally passed away due to his severe injuries. Ellie waited there for a long time, but Eula never arrived. Guda received a call from Eula saying that his brother had not survived the rescue. Terrified, Guda went to the funeral, but when he saw his brother's photo, he stopped in his tracks. It was as if his brother's eyes were staring at him. Scared, Gouda quickly backed away and fled. In the toilet, he heard his second brother calling the police, saying that they must find the murderer no matter what. Hearing this, Gouda trembled with fear. The police soon found him, because his older brother had spoken to him on the phone when the accident happened and needed his assistance with the investigation. Gouda wanted to get rid of his wife as soon as possible, and went over to her and ordered her to go home with him immediately. Ellie asked him what kind of attitude was this? She was not going back. Hearing that they were getting a divorce, Gouda secretly rejoiced in his heart. As long as he got rid of his wife, he could be with Eula. Gouda told Ellie not to regret what she had said tonight. It was you who didn't want to go back with me. Ellie couldn't believe it, that this was the man she had shared a bed with for years. The next day, the police came to Gouda's house again to take a statement. The police wanted to confirm where Gouda was the night of Eula's brother's accident. Facing the police's relentless questioning, Gouda could only say that he was with his wife at the time, but the police said they needed to see his wife. Gouda, who had just kicked his wife out, had no choice but to say that his wife had gone on a trip. The police had to let him know when the time came, just as the family was at a loss as to what to do. Lucy said that she had just thrown her sister-in-law out of the house that day, and that her brother still had a girlfriend on the outside. The family didn't know if she would be willing to come back and help, but the mother-in-law didn't think Ellie had the guts. Gouda thought about what Ellie had said about following him that night. He was so scared that he didn't know what to do. The police kept calling and urging them. The family was so anxious that they didn't know what to do. Without their daughter-in-law, the free babysitter, the mother-in-law had to make breakfast herself, but after taking a bite, she almost died of the saltiness. Her younger brother said that she was 60 years old and couldn't even make a good bean sprout soup. He told her to find a way to bring Ellie home. When she came back, she could testify for Gouda and do the laundry and cooking for everyone. At this time, the police came to the door again and asked if Ellie had returned from her trip. Gouda said that she would contact you naturally when she returned, but the police felt that they were deliberately stalling. Ellie had never gone on a trip. They had just heard from a neighbor in the community that you had kicked her out of the house. Of course they couldn't admit it. The mother-in-law said they were very good to their daughter-in-law, so why would they do such a thing? But the child next to them said that Ellie had been driven out by her aunt. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. The old father quickly covered his daughter's mouth, saying that the child might have been talking in her sleep. But these words made the police even more suspicious. Gouda asked him to go back first. The police said that as a lawyer, he should know that any further delay would only be detrimental to him. Eula asked Gouda out and asked him if there was a woman outside. She took a contract and said that it was to save her mother's company. The contract content is to ask Gouda, as a lawyer, to help dismiss some of the suggestions made by his brother before he died, and also to get rid of the woman outside. Gouda agrees without even thinking. Grandma also asks Ellie out and tells her to go home immediately, but Ellie says she can't go back. Grandma begs her to go back and testify for her son. Otherwise she will be framed as a murderer. She also blames Ellie for her son being framed because she wasn't at home. Ellie pushes away her grandmother's hand and firmly says she won't go back. The mother-in-law asked, "What about my son?" Ellie said, "This has nothing to do with me." The mother-in-law ran to the company and told her son, "That woman is so ruthless. She doesn't want to come back and be your alibi. She probably knows you have another woman. At this point, she must be determined to get back at you." Gouda was scared at this point. The next day, Gouda knelt before his mother-in-law and begged her to let his wife come home with him. His mother-in-law asked him what to do about the other woman. Gouda said, "I've already taken care of the woman outside," and asked her to feel free to let her daughter go home with him. But Ellie could not forgive such a man. She always felt that her husband wanted her to go back for another reason. Gouda, who had been exposed, had to pretend to be tough and say that he could come back or not as he pleased. But her mother felt that since her son-in-law had the heart to admit his mistake, he should be given another chance. Ellie said that she would think about it seriously. Just as Gouda was worrying about not having a witness, Ellie found him and said that she was willing to go home and testify for him. Gouda told her to be careful what she said, and told her what to say and how to say it. Ellie didn't understand why she had to lie. Gouda told her to stop talking and just do as she was told. Ellie asked him if he had been with that woman that night. Otherwise, why would he make her lie? Gouda pretended to tell the truth and said that he had indeed been with Eula, but that night he had broken up with her. So Eula was holding a grudge and refused to testify on his behalf. He also didn't want anyone to know about his relationship with Eula as it would damage his image as a lawyer. "My biggest worry is that I might hurt you." These sincere lies convinced Ellie, but she felt that there must be something wrong with making her lie. Ellie said she needed to go back and think about it. This gave Gouda a headache. His mother went to the company again to find Eula. She hoped that she would invest in saving his company, which was about to go bankrupt. But Eula said, "Your son broke up with me. Now you're asking me to help you. Do you think that's possible?" When the mother-in-law heard this, she almost fainted. When she got home, she angrily asked her son what was going on in his head. "You're a wealthy man, and you're not going to take her?" Gouda said that he did break up with her, but his mother told him not to be so stupid. He should get the money to save the company first, and then break up. Gouda couldn't believe what his mother was saying. She said she still didn't understand the situation. "If Ellie doesn't testify on my behalf, I'll be sent to prison as a murderer.